Thank you for watching Truth and Justice with Vivian King. I'm delighted to talk to you today about a man's story, Mr. Kenneth Foster, who will educate us about the criminal justice system and his struggle with addiction and overcoming addiction. Tonight, we will talk to him, find out what he's doing in life, and of course, I have my trusted co-host, Danny Sneed, the encourager, that's here, and he's been encouraging us in the studio tonight. So we're happy to educate and bring to you a local man's story and what he's doing tonight. So Kenneth Foster, let's jump right in. Thank you so much for agreeing to tell your story on Truth and Justice with Vivian King and co-host Danny Sneed, and trying to explain to us the perils of addiction. You know, one of our goals, and my goals, is to educate people about what people actually go through, give young people encouragement, discourage them from doing drugs, but if they do, let them know, and their mothers know, and the people who care about them, that there is life after drug addiction. So don't give up on people, because there's always hope and there's always prayer. And I know from your testimony tonight, we'll receive that. So Kenneth, who are you?
Oh, well, I am Ken Foster, and I'm delighted to be on this show. I'm humbled by it. I've spent a lot of time, most of my life, in theater and drama and acting. And, but I felt like I lived a double life.
Let's start with high school. Since a lot of people's drug interaction begins in high school, what would you say yours was high school? Or
that's where my addiction actually literally started on a high school bus. I was in the band.
Tell us the story. You went to Cashmere High School. You graduated in 1974. But tell us about high school.
I was in the marching band, and also what's known now as the Thunder Soul Jazz Band, which is famous now,
right, nationally
and internationally.
Right.
And I was in that band. And
what was your instrument?
I played the slide trombone, and I wasn't too crazy about it, but my mom bought me one when I was a teenager. And so I was in the band, and we were on our way to a football game. And on those days, we have our uniforms on. Everybody's got a lot of energy and everything. And I had a lot of things that I was suppressing. In my family, my mom had married this guy. He was my stepfather, and he was very abusive. And I grew up most of the time in fear of him, that he was going to hurt my mother and one of my siblings. And it was very, very violent in my house all the time. And a lot of ways I released that tension was playing my trombone, and even in the drama club. One afternoon on the way to the football game, somebody decided to roll a joint on the bus. And they were circling it around on the bus, and finally it came to me. And I took one puff, and everything in my life seemed to like a puff of smoke. It was like Puff the Magic Dragon. All of my anxiety was gone, all of my tension was gone. I felt totally free. And I didn't want to give that joint back to anybody.
Oh my God! That joint was good, wasn't it?
Yeah, you know, and then I found out where I could get it. They used to sell them in little matchboxes of weed. And so I found for $5. And so I found out where I could get my own little matchbox. And from that moment on, it was my release, my dream world. And plus, I went from the band to the drama club. And so I would play these characters out on stage. Before I got to a drama rehearsal, I would always smoke me one of my little marijuana cigarettes.
Wow.
And I could go into my fantasy world. And
it didn't make you forget your lines?
Oh, my God. It was just, I could be whoever I wanted to be.
Wow.
And that's when my addiction began. I didn't know it at the time. I didn't think it was anything. You know, marijuana didn't seem to me that big a deal, and I never dreamed of ever becoming an addict. You know, I thought a drug addict was somebody that used needles and
like
shot
heroin. Yeah, in the early 70s, it was heroin.
And
that's
so
what we saw.
Yeah, you know, so I would go to parties, and then from the parties, I had friends that had other chemicals, like black mollies, and then a friend of mine introduced me to LSD, where I could really go crazy.
That was popular back then. Early 70s was LSD, black mollies, quaaludes.
And I did them all.
Yeah, we did them all.
I certainly did, you know, the best of my ability.
Okay.
And,
what about acid?
Yeah, yeah.
You dropped a little acid
I
pills?
dropped some acid one night, and I had such, let's say, a bad trip. I'll never forget it as long as I live. because I came home. Because acid is a little bitty,
those little
yeah.
tabs, right?
And so I said, this little thing can't hurt me. I was like Richard Pryor. So I took another one.
Oh my God, you took
Before I got
two?
home, I took almost 3 of these
Oh
things.
my goodness.
And I'll never forget. It was the worst trip I ever had in my life. And so I tripped all night till the sun came up.
Wow. Did
Yeah.
you leave that alone? That drug alone?
I kind of like stayed away
So
from
the
that.
hallucinogens were not your
that
thing.
wasn't my thing. You know, I really didn't get into serious.
But wait a minute. But at that time with marijuana, people did used to lace it with embalming fluid back then. I think that's what they call PCP now, or wet.
No,
but
I
they
never
still,
did that.
you didn't do that. Okay.
I did that later on,
Okay.
years later. You see, even though I grew up here in Houston, I actually.
Well, let's talk about still high school. So you're dreaming into your drift land because marijuana is making you handle your home life a little bit better, right?
Oh, most definitely.
And you're not wanting to kill your stepfather at this time. You taking those butt whoopers? You taking the butt whoopers on your marijuana?
You know what? I had 2 older brothers, and they're the ones who usually got the whippings.
Okay. For
some reason, he didn't. I think he thought if he got his hands on me that I would be dead.
Because you were smaller,
I was
right?
a small guy, yeah.
Well, what about your mother? How'd y'all feel when your mother got beat up?
See, that's where the conflict came in, because my older brothers would try to defend her,
Right.
and they would fight.
Right.
And I was just explaining this to someone that on the weekends I would go and visit my cousins. I just get out of the house because I knew somebody was going to die in my home,
Right.
and because they were barbarian. You know, like my
What was wrong with your stepfather? Was he on drugs
No,
or
he
on
was
alcohol?
just a mean person that had a lot of frustration. I think when he was a child, he lost his parents.
So he was angry.
Yeah, so he had a lot of bitterness in him. Like society or the world was supposed to be was a bad place to him, and so he
Was he a working man?
Yeah,
But he'd come in and take it out on you guys.
right. He'd take it off on my mom and on my brothers. And
Did
I
she
would
have any
watch
children
it.
with him? Children
She
with
had
him?
2 kids with him. Yeah, my younger brother and my younger sister.
Now, would he beat them?
Well, he would, you know, he was an angry man.
Oh, my
and I found
God.
out that, you know, like years later after I left, he had problems with my sister and my younger brother.
But those were his biological
They
children.
were his kids. And he still had he had so much anger in him. And
How could he work, I wonder? Did he suppress it all day at work, being humble, and then come home and take it out on y'all?
He wasn't that humble, but he had a strange job where he collected like, I want to say garbage, but scrap metal.
Okay.
He had a truck, and he would get all this scrap metal.
Like Sanford and Son.
Yeah.
But he
Like
did it for
Lamont.
himself,
He
not
did
for
it
a
for himself.
company?
He had his own business, and he was hired out by usually bigger white companies that needed the stuff.
Okay.
And he had this relationship with these white guys. It was strange.
Right.
And they would pay him a lot of money to get this
Wow.
stuff and bring it into their facilities. And they would charge by the pound for this stuff.
Okay.
And this was his life. And it used to really amaze me because he always came home really dirty, because it took a lot of physical strength to do what he did. He worked on railroad places where a lot of this stuff was in barges and stuff. And he would come home really, really dirty and filthy, and his clothes all raggedy. and he would curse. He would curse viscerally.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, I thought my middle name was GD, because that's what it.
That's all
Jenny, GD, Jenny, GD, and I thought that was my middle name until I was about 15 years old. And he would speak like that to my mother, to everybody.
You thought your name was Goddamn?
Yeah,
Kenneth Goddamn?
that's right.
Oh.
And that was his favorite word.
Kenneth Goddamn.
God damn it, Jenny, God damn it, God damn it, God damn it. And, you know, that was my memory of my childhood. And I was so afraid of this man. You know, he was like to me.
Wait a minute, until you smoked your weed.
Until I smoked that weed. And then he went away. God damn it, God damn it, God damn it. And I can handle it, you know.
I'm sorry for laughing, because I know it was painful.
It was a trip. That's all I can say, you know. And
It was
so,
a trip. So once
look
you,
at other
let's
people.
talk about this. So once you get out of high school, where do you go?
Okay, I was in the drama department, right?
Right.
And so I decided from an early age I was going to become an actor. When I was in the drama club, I won awards for acting. I did a play called Me Nobody Knows About These Kids in Harlem, and I was very, very good at it. In fact, when I decided, because I was going to be a choice between music and drama, and so I went to my high school teacher. Her name was Annette Lynch. Wonderful woman. This is the time when they began to integrate the schools, and she was the first white teacher we had. And I did a play for her called, it was called The Fantastics. And she would take us to these tournaments. We competed against all these schools, even white schools. And I would win. and I was really cocky. And so one day we won. We won second place, and it was at one of these prestigious white schools. And I felt like we should have won first. And when they called my name for second place, I refused to get out of my seat to go and pick up the award.
How arrogant,
and I had a scene
arrogant of you.
And a scene partner of mine, O.C. Stubblefield, he went running to the stage. This girl was in the play. One of these girls I had the biggest crush on, Cheryl Stewart. They went running up to the stage, and I'm still sitting there. And my drama teacher's looking at me. Her face is turning pink. She's white, right? And so finally, after about 5 minutes, I get up out of my seat, and I, like, strut down the stage like I'm Snoop Dogg or something.
Oh, my God.
And they finally give me my trophy. And when I get back, she takes the trophy out of my hand. She says, Kenneth, I can't believe you know, you better hold on to this trophy today because I'm taking it back to the school. It's going in the trophy case, and you'll never see it again. And so it's still in the Kashmere High School trophy case.
Wonderful.
But that taught me a lesson about who I was and what life was really all about. It took me a long time to get over that. But I'm telling you this because I decided to become an actor. And I left Houston and went to Chicago, Illinois, where I auditioned for a school for the performing arts, and I was accepted. And that opened my eyes to another world. I had to learn Shakespeare, I had to learn classical theater, trained, you know, and in the midst of all of this, I was still smoking marijuana. I never used any serious drugs, but I didn't realize I had an addiction to drugs because I used to medicate myself before classes, and I was in school at DePaul University. It was a place called the Goodman School of Drama. And a very prominent actor, his name was Meshack Taylor. He befriended me and told me to audition for this school, and I did, and I was accepted. Out of maybe 2,000 or 3,000 people, they accepted maybe 3 or 4 black kids, and I was one of those kids. I was very, very surprised when I got the acceptance letter in the mail.
Where did you live in Chicago?
I lived with an uncle. We lived on the south side of Chicago, off of Cottage Grove and 63rd Street. And I remember when I would be in the home and the train would go by and the whole place would rattle.
Did he know you were smoking weed, or did he?
I never tried to do it when he was at home or around him. He was a much older man, and so I tried to play the innocent school kid. You know, I was going to college when I first moved in, and that's the way I believe he saw me. And he was much older, and I don't think I wouldn't do anything around him that would bring any shame on him. But I did.
So talk about the continued addiction and what phases it took you through as a young man in your 20s.
Yeah, and because to me, as I said, I didn't think marijuana was such a bad thing. And I befriended someone who was a heroin addict.
In Chicago?
In Chicago. And he was an older man. And I used to look at him like, you know, I wouldn't say anything derogatory to him, but I thought he was like a lowlife. That's how I saw him, because he was addicted to heroin, and I knew he was addicted to heroin. And every once in a while, because I worked for his family, I would do work for his wife's mother, who owned a daycare center for elderly people. And he would come by, and they would tell me, this is one of my sister's ex-husbands, and just be careful around him, because he's hooked on heroin, and the whole family knew it.
Wow.
And he had an interesting history, too, because he had a military career. And after
Sounds
the
like
military,
Danny.
After the military, he started doing heroin.
Now, after 20 years in the military, or
Yeah, he had a
4 or
career
5
in
years?
it.
Okay.
I think, yeah, because he was West Point
Oh, wow.
graduate,
Wow.
and he got hooked on heroin.
Wow.
And he fascinated me because he would tell me really interesting stories, and after the stories, he'd ask me if I had $5.
Charge you for the story.
He charged him for the story.
And if I had it, I would give it to him.
Wow.
And interesting thing about him, after a while, I moved out of my uncle's, and I had my own little apartment. And he would stop by every once in a while.
Did he live with you?
He lived in the building, and he had a girlfriend in the building. And one day I came home from school, and those trucks was out in front of our apartment. And
The emergency trucks?
yeah,
Yeah.
his girlfriend had died of an overdose.
Wow.
And it took a couple of hours for them to get her out of the apartment building. The truck was out there. And I went outside, and I was looking at what was going on, and they would put her body into the vehicle, And he looked at me and he says, Ken, can you let me have $5?
Wow.
Wow. His woman had just died of an overdose, and he's still asking for $5. Still
And I
trying
gave
to
it
get
to
ahead.
him. And that's why I look down on him, you know. And to this day, you know, I became a crackhead.
Oh, raw. Wow. Well,
And I thought never in my life would ever I be an addict like that. Well, I'd have to be addicted to something where I had to medicate myself when somebody I know just died.
someone I love just died.
Yeah. And the first thing I can think of now is like, how can I get my high?
Wow. So
didn't
take
know-
us from that day when you're so disgusted by that to a day that you try something as addictive as crack.
It's still, I had gone to DePaul University's Goodman School of Drama. I stayed there for 2 years, and then things didn't go the way I wanted. I ended up in a school called Columbia College, where I enjoyed it because it was more black kids in Columbia. And I used to call Goodman the Goodley School of Drama because it was all these Caucasian people. And
Were they not friendly with you?
Some of them were, but most of them weren't. I
Okay.
was like the black kid,
Right,
you know.
outcast, right.
And so I felt.
And people don't
outside.
understand during integration, it's very lonely.
It
You know,
was.
so when you see all of these other 19, 20, 20-year-olds being friends, hanging out, going for coffee, you're kind of by yourself. And if someone does ask you, it's like they do it because you're staring at them or you look lonely and just something, but they don't seem sincere and you know people in the group don't like you. Integration was very lonely
It was.
for black
I
people.
was the
So I
black
can
kid.
understand that.
At school, and I can remember my school.
And stressful, lonely and stressful.
I felt honored that I was one of the black kids to be able to go there,
Right.
but they didn't treat me like they treated everybody.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I understand.
So after 2 years, I ended up transferring to Columbia College, which was a more integrated school.
Right.
We had a lot of all kind of kids there, and I felt like I fit in, and I was given more prestige there. And because I had studied at Goodman, and whoa, he's gone to Goodman. That's like Juilliard, right? So they treated me differently. I started getting all this attention, and I got to be in a lot of plays, and I thought I was the guy. And I auditioned for a professional company before I even graduated, and I got a part in the play with a guy that was a director named John Malkovich, who
Oh, I've
has
heard of John
now
Malkovich,
been nominated for Academy Awards, but he
Right.
wasn't that big a deal, but he was big in Chicago.
Right.
Everybody knew who John Malkovich was. And so he cast me in a play.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, man, I must be a big-time guy, right? So I'm doing this play, and we're getting ready to graduate, and I had a buddy that was a popular actor, a very handsome, debonair guy. And I felt like we were Sidney Poitier and Harry Belafonte, you know, because everybody really loved this guy. He was very, very suave. Yeah. And he had a girlfriend, a white girlfriend. And they lived in this nice little apartment. And I would go and by and visit him. And so after school ended, I needed a place to stay. I was living in the dorms. So he says, Kim, why don't you come and move in my apartment? So I did. I lived down the hall from him. This guy came down to my apartment one evening. Him and his girlfriend had a big fight because you could hear it all up and down the hall. So I had to knock on my door. And I look out the keyhole, and it's my friend. And he's looking at me kind of like curiously, and I open the door, and he comes into my apartment. It's like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. And he's got this glass thing with him. He says, Kenneth, have you ever freebased before? And I said, no. But I was in the drugs. I had done every kind of drug imaginable.
Right.
So this was just something that maybe,
Something
you know,
new.
Right. And so he puts this little rock on the thing and lights it and gives it to me.
What
I
did he do
didn't
that
know
for?
that was going to become the beginning of the end for me.
Wow.
And he started coming by in the evening. And I had saved up some money from my student loans and little jobs that I had. I may have had $2,000 or $3,000 in my medicine cabinet. And he knew I always had a little money.
Oh, wow.
And before the end of the summer, all that money was gone. I ended up putting him in a drug program and coming back to Houston. And I didn't know that I was really, really hooked on cocaine at the time. I knew I had a problem, but I didn't know I was really, really addicted till I got a job at Houston's Alley Theater in a play called Another Part of the Forest in the mid-'80s. And I was still playing this wannabe actor, kind of like, because I got a job at the Alley Theater, I must be a good actor. And I would go to crack houses here in Houston, and I would spend so much money, and I had to be on stage at 8 o'clock. I had to be at the theater by 7 to get in my costume and put on my makeup and all this stuff with all the other actors. It was a white company. It was only me and another black girl who was a member of this company at the time. And so my friends would say, Ken, about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, don't you have to go to the theater? And so at about 6:30, I'd call a cab, and I had smoked maybe $500 worth of crack cocaine.
Oh my God, a day?
And they would put me in the cab, and the cab would take me to the theater, and I would run out of the cab and try to get into my costume in 15 minutes so I could go on stage.
Would you perform?
Oh yeah.
Would you make it?
Oh yeah. I could perform. I could do the play.
Wow.
A play that's hour and 30, hour and 45 minutes. And I'm in a green room like this with 10 or 12 actors.
Faking
And
it.
they don't know I'm sweating profusely, and I'm just trying to act normal. And I'm so high, I can't even speak straight. But I walk out on stage, and I do my play, and I go home.
Can I ask you a question? Not to cut you off. During this time, do you think that they didn't know what was going on?
That's a good question. Something happened. They gave me an advance to go on. We were going to take this play on a national tour, in which we did. And so the producers gave me $3,000 for this. I spent it in 3 days.
So you never made it?
Oh, yes, I did. And this was the beginning of my recovery, and I didn't know it. I called my drama teacher from high school, who had left Kashmir and was now living in Arizona. And I was so freaked out because I didn't know what to do, because I had to use this money for the travel expenses. And I didn't have $3,000 now, and we're getting ready to leave Houston to go to our first city. So I said, I called Annette, I am in trouble. They've gave me this money to go on a tour, and I spent it, and I need to borrow $3,000. Wow. She says, Kenneth, I'm not teaching anymore. I've gone back to school, and I don't have it. And I didn't know what to do. And so we were still doing the play. We still had 2 or 3 more shows left here in Houston. And one afternoon, I'm getting ready to get in costume. I'm not having used anything now because I'm so freaked out. I'm starting to come down in my mind. And and somebody comes to my dressing room and says, Mr. Foster, you have a phone call from the producers upstairs. They want to talk to you. So I go, and I said, I know there's something wrong. Why are they calling me on the phone? And it's a woman. Her name is Pat Brown. She was the artistic director of the Alley Theater. She says, Kenneth, I got a phone call from someone.
Oh, that was your teacher.
And I need to talk to you. Can you come to my office on Wednesday? We need to speak to you. I said, sure, Miss Brown, I'll be there. I went up to the office that Wednesday, and I get in there, and she's in there with associate producer, and I feel like the kid that's been calling to the principal's office. I've sat down. She says, Kenneth, look, we got a phone call from someone who says that they know you. You're a teacher. Her name is Miss Lynch. I said, yeah, that's my high school teacher. She says, well, she said that you had some problems with drugs.
Wow.
And
So she knew it?
Yeah.
But you had never told her, but she knew it.
Annette told her everything.
But how did Annette know?
I told her.
Oh, you told her the drugs? Okay.
Yeah. I told her I was
Now, did you feel betrayed, or do you think that that's what you needed?
I couldn't think coherently, but what happened, it turned out in my favor. So I wasn't upset because she said something to me. Miss Brown, she says, Kenneth, my family has had trouble with alcohol. See, my dad was an alcoholic. This is Pat Brown, the artistic director, telling me this herself. She says, I understand what you're going through. I want you to get help. She said, you know we could terminate our contract with you?
Oh, my God.
I said, yeah, Pat, that's why I thought I was in there for. He said, but we're going to allow you to finish the tour. We're going to give you a gold card, and you will have a chaperone, and you can't go 50 miles from the theater. And you'll have an allowance of $50 a day for your per diem. And when you finish, we want you to promise that you will get help. That was the beginning of another road for me. And I told some of the cast members, most of them didn't know. But the people that I trusted and admired, I told them, what had happened.
Isn't it a blessing that some people can have mercy instead of punishment? And you had been abused so much as a child, your expectation was abuse, something mean, something heartless. You know, you expected to be punished for what you did.
I thought that my career was over.
You thought you expected to be punished for what happened.
I thought that they was going to kick me off the company. And that was the most fun I'd ever had in my life.
Yeah.
Was doing that play, going to the Alley Theater every night and working with these great actors.
Even though you were screwing it up all day by getting high all day, not even taking advantage of, you could have been there 2 or 3 hours earlier, practicing, helping other people get dressed, but you were cracking it up until you got there.
Well, some days I would come sober.
Okay.
It wasn't always. I was always because I have, you know, I have a respect for acting.
For the art.
I have a respect for it. I knew that I was blessed to do what I did, you know, and like I said, I lived a double life. You know, I could play this actor person. I was very good at it. Very, very good at it.
Actor playing an actor.
And that's what I was doing. A lot of what I ended up doing, even, I like to tell my story, I made a movie. And a movie about how I got off of drugs.
Wow.
And I had to act in that movie. I had to play myself.
So how did you get off drugs?
Oh, wow. See, now we're leapfrogging, but it has.
Okay, well, let's not leapfrog. Let's go.
Okay.
Let's take it.
It began with that phone call from Annette Lynch. When I got home, I didn't have a lot of insurance, so I didn't know where to go to get treatment. And I had rented an apartment here in Houston, and I befriended a guy who was very, very a white guy, who was he lived in my building. For some reason, we started a conversation one afternoon. He invited me to his house. And I knew he was a Christian because he had a Bible there and he would like to talk about Jesus. And so I told him that I was in trouble and that I needed to go to some kind of program, but I didn't have any money. And so I said, I only have a few days left under my rent. My lease is going to be up and I have to leave the apartment. And he came over to my house. He says, Kenneth, I got some good news for you. I found out about this program that you can get into. It won't cost you anything. And it's called Victory Outreach. And I said, okay. And so I packed a bag, and he took me to the place, and it was a house. And it was a home for people that were addicted to drugs and alcohol. But the odd thing about it, it was mostly Hispanic. So,
but it was free.
It's free. So I went in there. My mind was still in the fog, and
now had you done the road trip with the play?
I'd already done that.
So you were back. Okay.
I was back in Houston. Okay. The tour, my contract was up, everything.
Okay.
And so I didn't have much money, but I said, you know, I need to get help. I need to change, right? So I decided.
About how old were you then?
I was in my late 20s, probably getting close to 30 years old by then. And so I go into this program, and they had other facilities in different places. So they shift me off to San Antonio, Texas. So I'm there, and I'm reflecting on my life and my addiction and all this stuff, and I love to write. So I started writing some vignettes about my story, and I called it Crack Street.
Crack Street. That's a good name, Crack Street.
I wrote a rap about it.
Crack Street, I like it.
Yeah, and so I'm there in this drug treatment program, mostly 90% Hispanics. And
I'm from San Antonio, so don't talk about my Hispanic roots.
They did not take too well to me. They pretended to, but they did not.
Okay.
And I felt intimidated sometimes.
Right, of course.
Because a lot of them came from hardcore drugs.
Right.
This was Victory Outreach is it was started by this guy who started a program in New York City. And it spread across America, Teen Challenge. And I found out a lot of history about this. This guy that went to New York, and there's a movie, The Cross and the Switchblade. It's very famous. This guy made it, and Pat Boone made the movie. But anyway, Teen Challenge became like a umbrella for other organizations like Victory Outreach. Victory Outreach became headed by mostly Hispanics. And I forget the guy's name, but he was like the leader. And in the morning, we would go to his house and have breakfast.
In San Antonio?
In San Antonio. And so after a while, I needed to get out of that place. And I did. I did.
I wonder why.
I did. I did. And I ended up in another program.
In San Antonio?
Yes.
Okay.
And I can't even remember, but it was a church facility.
Okay.
And it was another Christian program.
Okay.
But it was more people like other than it was mostly whites.
Okay.
And I had a dorm and everything. And I stayed there.
For
And
how long?
I stayed there for maybe about 4 or 5 months.
Wow.
Okay, now this is interesting because it leads up to something
Okay.
where my mission began.
Now don't forget to interject your jail visit because you
Okay,
have been
that's
to
coming
jail.
up. I haven't been to jail yet.
Hold your thought because we have a phone call. So thank you for calling Truth and Justice with Vivian King. Please turn your volume down on your TV and talk directly into your phone.
Okay, good evening, everybody.
Oh, you're a pro. I don't know why I'm telling you. How you doing?
Right. Well, I was just want to commend the brother on making it through that and everything. And you went to Chicago. I'm from Chicago. Vivian, know I'm from Chicago.
Oh, you know, I know, yeah.
Yeah, my dad from over there where you was at. So, off of 63rd and Halsted. So it ain't too far from where you was actually at. And I had a brother who was addicted over in that particular area. But, during that time, when they was coming from Vietnam,
Yeah, that's the Vietnam.
a lot of people from the South Side and a lot of them brothers, heroin was really tough, man. It was hard. It was hard. So, I had the same with growing up in the 70s and seeing them heroin addicts and stuff like that, and talking to them, to my loved ones, my cousin, them, and all that stuff was crazy. But what tripped me out is when the crack, when the crack hit Chicago after the heroin, and I know people just like yourself, like my brother was telling me, one of my other brothers was freebasing, but it was before crack. They was just freebasing and doing it, before it was ready like that. And he was talking about one of my brothers, this and that. And he ended up, being on drugs and stuff like that. So, but, I just wanted to, share that with you. And Columbia University. Now, Columbia, is that downtown? Is it? Because I know you went to DePaul and Columbia. Where's Columbia? Because it's High Park. Where's Columbia?
Columbia is located in downtown, right off of Michigan Avenue.
Oh, okay. It ain't over there by the museum, by the art museum.
Well, yeah, that's all
on Michigan Avenue.
Off of Michigan Avenue. Do you know where Roosevelt University is?
Okay, all right.
That's right up the street.
So that ain't the Ivy League. I remember Loyola.
No.
But that ain't that one. When I be thinking, because matter of fact, I was listening to WVON today. I'm pretty sure you're familiar with VON, and they was talking about Columbia. But I was thinking they was talking about the Ivy League Columbia School in Chicago.
I think the Ivy League one's in New York.
That's in New York City.
It's in New York. Yeah. So, all right, bro. I just want to commend you on that, man.
I appreciate that.
Thanks
you.
for watching.
My partner from Chi-Town.
Yeah, thank you for watching. Thank you for watching, sweetheart.
Let me try to get back to what was going on.
Yes, sir.
Okay, because this all ties in together. Okay, I met this girl at the program I was in San Antonio, and she was bipolar. She was white. Okay. And I befriended her. Mm-hmm. And we was to go out for coffee and stuff. We were both in the program. I was in there for alcohol and dependency, and she was in there for depression. And she was a very, very nice person. And but she got a Social Security check every month, and she always told me that she wanted to get a real job, but I knew she couldn't handle a real job. And the people in the program thought, because she was bipolar, she would be up one minute and totally depressed the second, in a twinkling of an eye. And so we would go out for coffee, and I would soothe her by doing monologues from Shakespeare.
Oh, wow.
And she loved it. Mm-hmm. And I would tell her these little, to be or not to be, that is the question, whether it's an open in the mind. And she would just get so intense, and I would just repeat all these, let the marriage of two minds have been impediment, for love is not love that alters. And I would do this to her, and she just loved it. And she answered an ad in the paper. This lady had had a serious surgery because she had a tumor, brain tumor, that left her paralyzed from the waist down. She was rich, and she lived out on outskirts of San Antonio in an Indian-style home, and she needed someone to take care of her in the daytime. So Sherry answered the ad. The lady fell in love with Sherry, and Sherry moved into the home with the lady. And when she was with the lady, she would say, I have a boyfriend. He does Shakespeare, blah, 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 blah. And she says, Sherry, invite him into the house. I want to meet him. Her name was Betty Road. Her husband was Kyle Road, a famous athlete in New York City. After she had this illness that left her paralyzed from the waist down, he divorced her. She felt dejected, but she was a socialite. She had seen all these plays in New York on Broadway, and she saw an English actor named Alec McGowan do The Book of Mark on Broadway.
Wow.
So when I came over to her house that afternoon, Kenneth, I saw the English actor Alec McGowan do The Book of Mark live on Broadway. Well, she knew I was in a Christian program, thought immediately, well, you must have received salvation. So would you consider doing The Book of Mark to show God your appreciation for your salvation? And I looked this woman dead in the eye, and I said, sure, Betty, why not? She was in a wheelchair. She had all this white hair. She looked like this little, some kind of like somebody from a queen from England in this wheelchair, and she's asking me to do this. And I'm in her home. How could I say no? And God took that as a yes. In my mind, I'm thinking to myself, this lady is obviously completely insane. And why am I here? And I cannot wait to get out of this house so I can go to Los Angeles and meet Denzel Washington to become a famous movie star, right?
Right, right.
God took that as a yes. And that became my life's calling. Now I do The Book of Mark as a stage play.
Wow.
I travel across America doing it. I've done it at my church at St. John's for Easter and for Christmas. So we're getting farther in the story, but that's where it all really, my sobriety began. But it didn't, I went home that evening, and I bought a bottle of wine.
Now you in a Christian program?
And I
You've
drank
been to the lady's house?
This communion wine, Vivian.
Oh.
Right. And I started reading the Book of Mark.
Getting drunk.
And
Reading the Book of
brought
Mark.
tears to my eyes. And I could not stop crying.
So you weren't too drunk?
I needed it. Just to
Just to calm you down.
This is the book. I knew what the Book of Mark was. I was college educated. I knew it was one of the 4 Gospels. And this woman was asking me to memorize one of the Gospels and do it as a play.
That's a lot.
I'm saying, you know, hey, why don't you throw in the Book of Revelation while you're at it?
Right, right.
I was not about to do this. But I thought I would humor this, you know, and just read it.
Right.
But it had such a dramatic effect on me. See, when I was in school, I dreamed of playing Hamlet. That was my favorite play in the whole wide world. And those are the plays, those were the little sonnets that I would do for Sherry. Would be from Hamlet or some of the other sonnets. Because I thought I was a black Hamlet. Hamlet was a young man who had a mean stepfather.
Oh.
And his stepfather killed his dad.
Oh, to become his stepfather.
He became the king by killing his father.
Right. Oh my God.
And I
so you
walked
can relate
around
to
him.
that.
I was Hamlet. I was a black Hamlet.
Right.
Walking around, you know, like I had all this frustration and hostility in my, to be or not to be, that I could kill me, kill everybody around me.
Right.
And that's how I was. And the drugs that would free me from all of that.
Right.
But I wanted to play that part on stage. And so as I read the part of Jesus, who was the Son of God, who came to the world to free people and had all of this gifts to heal the sick and the lame, and he could do these things, and he touched lepers and healed. I was like, who is this man? I was reading him for the first time because I said to myself, maybe I could do this. It'd be better than playing Hamlet. I'm playing Jesus. Son of God. So my ego got into it and said, why not try to do this? Man, I ended up leaving San Antonio, running out of San Antonio. I literally hitched a ride with a guy I'd never met before in my life. And he flipped the coin. He says, Ken, we're going to either go to Los Angeles or New York City. And it came down Los Angeles. I grabbed my bag, I got in the car with him, and we started driving to Los Angeles, California. And that's how I ended up in L.A.
Okay.
And that's where my delivery came, though.
But where'd the jail come in?
Okay. I started using drugs again in Los Angeles.
Oh, Lord, Kenneth.
I started using drugs seriously. I didn't know. Because they say you got to hit bottom. I didn't know there was a bottom coming.
Now, what drugs did you do in L.A.?
I was doing crack cocaine.
Again, you
I had
couldn't do
left
it.
freebasing, like the caller just spoke.
Right. So now when you didn't have to cook it and make it into a rock, now you can buy the rock.
You can buy the rocks.
You can buy the rock
And
now.
that's what I was, a couple of years had passed. This was like the late 80s. Now I'm in Los Angeles. And when I first got there, I didn't know anybody. I ended up in some lady's house. And from there, I just left the house. I wanted to be in Los Angeles. So I went into Los Angeles. Now, the thing about Los Angeles is different from Houston. They have a welfare system. And you can get money, and they will put you up in an apartment in Los Angeles. So I did that. I ended up in a little welfare apartment, getting a small check every month, and then they will help you find a job. But in the midst of this, I started using drugs again. And I knew about Victory Outreach. So I went into another Victory Outreach program where I could stay in a program and try to get sober. But every time I would get in the program, I would go back to using drugs when I got enough money to get out. And so I ended up in this program in Long Beach, California. And I was staying in a board and care. And I was like a low-level drug dealer.
Oh, Lord.
I would get drugs, and I'd get enough for me to smoke, and then I would get enough for me to sell. But I'd always end up smoking it all.
Oh.
And without any money and without any drugs. And so I had some drugs one evening, and I was going to go out to the beach and sell them to make enough money to get some more drugs. So it's about 2 o'clock in the morning. And I've been out there all afternoon. I haven't sold many drugs, but I was kind of like a, I had a scheme for the things that I would do. I had a black leather jacket, and I decided I would cut a hole in the inseam of it and put my drugs in there. And when I got stopped by the police, if I ever got stopped by the police, they wouldn't find it. And it worked. I would get pulled over all the time. And I had people in the neighborhood that would snitch on me because I would stand in front of this shopping plaza and sell little rocks, like $5 or $10. And that's only people that I would buy the drugs from a real drug dealer and then cut them up into small little pieces and sell them in the neighborhood to people that didn't have any money. So one afternoon I was in a car, and there was like 5 other people in the car with me. And they told me to get out. And they searched me. It was white police officers. They couldn't find the drugs, and they would let me go. So I'm on the beach, and I got crack pipes now on me. And so I see these police cars pull up. And I take the pipes, and I throw them on the side of the hill where I'm sitting at, off the beach. And I got my little stash, my crack in my little pouch.
Your little secret.
My little secret pouch. And these 2 white cops walk up to me. What are you doing out here? Oh, I was having some problems at home. I just wanted to get some air. You know, some air. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. Well, yeah. Well, you look like you might be selling drugs. Are you selling drugs? I said, no, sir. So they said, we're going to search you. They searched me. They can't find anything.
But they found those crack pipes.
Nope. They didn't find anything. I'm getting ready to walk off the beach. Another car pulls up. It's a black police officer. He says, what's going on down here? Oh, we just checking the place, make sure, you know, people are, this guy, he's all right, ain't nothing going on. He said, you sure?
Let me search him again.
He wants to search me again.
Wow.
He puts me to the side. He goes up and down. He finds 2 little rocks that I have in a little thing that I hadn't spoken yet. He says, what is this? I says, well, you know, man, I do a little something, something. He says, man, take off your jacket.
Oh,
He
busted.
takes off the jacket. He finds the crack in my jacket. He says, you know, you need to go to jail tonight.
You need to
I said, I don't need to go to jail, brother. You know, you a brother. I'm a brother.
Give a
Give
brother
him
a break.
play. He
The
looked
brother
at me and
card.
says, no, you going to jail. And I just said to myself, why? It's this black guy. I got arrested. And they charged me with a felony. You know,
But
they probably could have gave me 2 or 3 years, but they for some reason, I don't know, they only gave me like a year or so. I only did about 6 months in jail, flat. So I knew I was blessed. Because I had friends in jail. Everybody in jail was telling me, hey, man, I tried to beat this case, got 5 years. 15 years, 13 years, and they all looking at me because I don't want to tell them, you know, I got 9 months.
No, you don't want to tell them that you've been spared the rod, huh?
Because I would go to court, and they had people in there that murdered people. They all shackled and gaffeled down, shackled up, I mean, from head to toe.
So,
this one guy had killed a teacher at practice at UCLA.
Oh,
and his name had been in the newspapers. I'm in the elevator with him. And I'm looking at this guy like, oh, God.
God help me.
Like,
help me, God help me. Get me out here with these killers.
Together, right?
Right.
And one day, actually, I went to court one day. And this was after I'd been released. And I went on a petty little thing, like drinking in public or something. And I'm in the court.
Oh, you hadn't had enough?
I hadn't had enough yet.
Oh, okay.
So anyway, I'm in the court line, and this guy's in front of me. And he been on that same beach where I got arrested that night. And he had been given a warning. He was on probation.
You got 10 minutes to wrap the story up.
Okay, he was on probation. And he was in front of me. And he had been in a place where he was not supposed to be. And it was part of his probation. And they caught him on the beach, and they had rounded up a lot of drug addicts. And so when the judge saw him, he knew who he was. He said, I thought I told you not to go in a drug area. 5 years.
Oh, my God.
And my knees buckled under me.
I know. He's like, oh,
so I
Lord.
said, my God, because, you know, I know I was going to be out in 3 days. But I never did any serious drug time. But I knew about, as I used to, like I said, I was kind of like a small-time drug dealer. And I was in a place called Culver City, in a motel.
Culver. I know Culver City. C-U-L-V-E-R City. I know Culver.
And I mean, black people didn't even go in this part of town.
City, right.
And somebody had just dropped off a package, $1,000 worth of coke, and I was selling it out of that hotel room. And I had a young girl in there was underage. She might not even been 13 years old.
Shh,
she was white.
Oh, it was a long time ago.
Yeah,
The statute of limitations
This girl,
is
somebody had told me to help her, let her stay there for a night.
The statute of limitations has run. She was 13. She's about 100 now.
And I didn't do anything to this girl, but she was in the room, and the police came to the door. The police
Bill Cosby, you sedated that little girl.
The police came to the door and knocked on the door. They saw the drug dealers drop the package out into my hotel room. And I know I'm getting ready to go to prison for 25 years.
No, right.
This girl I was dating, a white lady.
But she's not the 13-year-old.
No.
This
is my grown woman. And she was a hooker. And she had these dolls, porcelain dolls. They were sitting on a dresser. And she said, Kenneth, these are my daughter's dolls. Don't let anything happen to these dolls. She was already in jail. She had gone to jail for prostitution. So I got this underage girl in my room, these dolls, and I'm getting ready to sell these drugs out of my hotel room. And the police are knocking on my door.
I hope you didn't answer it.
Oh, yeah, I answered the door.
Okay, do not answer the door when the police
Oh, no. They said, we saw somebody come. We know it's a known drug dealer. We want to search your room.
Did they have a search warrant?
I said, do you have a search warrant? They said, no, but I can leave my partner here while I go and get a search. I said,
actually, when the police say that, you need to let them go get it.
Okay, look what I did. My girlfriend had these porcelain dolls. For some reason, I took this package of cocaine and stuffed them in one of the dolls and put the thing on it and left it sitting there. So I said, officer, come in. And I had another friend who lived next door to me who also was a drug dealer. And I was going to rock some of this stuff up, so I went and got some baking soda from him. And I put it in a
You already had it before the police got there.
Right. And I had some aluminum foil in my little refrigerator full of baking soda. So I said, officer, please come in. They came into the room. Me and the kids sat out on the front porch. They tore that apartment up. One of them came out with an aluminum foil bag. Said, we think we found something in the room.
And that was the baking soda.
And said, I'm going to send my partner to check this stuff out. If it's all right, you can go. 10 minutes goes by, he comes back, it's baking soda. They walk
He's a lucky
outside.
Dude, isn't he? Dan, he's lucky.
They walk outside of the room.
Happy.
I turn around, I go back into the room. The room is completely destroyed. There's pillowcases, there's sheets, there's everything torn up from top to bottom. On the dresser
are those porcelain dolls.
Those porcelain dolls. The police officer asked me, says, sir, where did you get those dolls? I say they belong to my girlfriend, who's away for the weekend.
And that's her daughter.
And she said, take care of those dolls. My daughter has a set of those dolls at home. You take very good care of those dolls. And they walked out. and they closed the door, and I went to the dolls and took out the bottom, and the drugs fell on the floor.
You're a lucky dog.
The guy next door, they came that night and rushed his house and drug him out of his apartment. I told him that the police were there, and he was facing 25 years to life.
And they raided him and found drugs. You a lucky devil. We have 7 minutes, you lucky devil. And so you need to tell us how you finally kicked that drug addiction.
Well, you know, I was still doing the drugs and everything, but I was trying to find the Lord, and I ended up near the campus of UCLA, and I ended up getting money from Social Security, and I rented a small apartment. And while I was there...
Now, why did you qualify for Social Security?
Because I told them that I had a mental problem.
You were bipolar too?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I had found a psychologist.
Okay.
That approved.
And you probably were.
I probably was.
When you beat up like that as a child, you suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder.
And
the drugs make you crazy too.
One of the byproducts of cocaine is a chemical imbalance.
Okay. So I met a group of kids who were students on the campus of UCLA called InterVarsity. And I would go to their Bible studies occasionally. And I found out the only book they studied was the Book of Mark. Yeah.
Back to the Book of Mark.
Back to the Book of Mark again. And so I had been studying it, and one night I decided to go down to this friend's house who lived by a place called MacArthur Park, which is a notorious drug park, full of drugs.
Kenneth, I'm rooting for you, baby.
So I go there one night, and I've got 20 bucks in my pocket. And I decide to take a detour, and I go and sit in this little alley by myself. And I'm thinking to myself, what's going on with me? And suddenly, I hear this voice in my head saying, Kenneth. And I used to use all kind of aliases, and I thought somebody was trying to play some kind of joke on me because it was like an audible voice. And then the voice said, Kenneth, this is not what I created you to be. Before you were in your mother's womb, I created you to serve me. And something happened to me in that moment. And
in the alley.
In the alley.
In
with
Culver City.
$20.
With $20.
This is in downtown Los Angeles now.
Oh, at MacArthur Park.
MacArthur Park. And so I say, this is crazy. So I get up and I said, I'm going to go find me some cocaine, some crack. And I go to this guy who I know been selling me coke for a long, long time. And I go to his house and I knock on his door. And nobody answers. So I knock again and somebody says, who is that out there? And I tell him who I am. He says, get off my porch, I got a gun, I'll come out there and shoot you. So I get off the porch, I'll go back to the little place where I've been sitting at. I've been buying coke from this guy all this time, and he don't know who I am, he wants to shoot me. What is going on? So a few days later, I heard about this place where you can get off drugs. It was a rehabilitation place.
Yeah, 4 minutes.
And so the place is full. You can't get in. So a couple of days later, I go to another place where I heard about, but I didn't know the name of it. And I said, I walked down this side street, and I asked a couple of people, is there a drug place around here somewhere? They said, yeah, it's right up that hill, man. It's a big place. You can't miss it. So I go into the back of it, and it is enormous. And there's these dumpsters there. And I said, I'm going to go in here and see if I can get clean. And so I used to keep these crack pipes in my socks and in my shoes. I had about 3 of them. And I take them out of my shoes and I put them under the dumpster. And I said, I'm going to go in
under the dumpster, not in the dumpster,
no,
but under the dumpster. So
I'm ready to come back.
I'm going to come back.
Because I might need to come back.
If ain't nobody to help me, I'm coming back here and get these crack pipes. Sister King, that was 15 years ago. It was called the Dream Center. That place turned my life around. There was a man in there, I can't think of his name, Giovanni or something. He was a big Hispanic guy. And he would, it takes a real man to face God, to be a servant of Christ. You got to be a real man. The only sissies out here running around with the devil. And if anybody is a real man, I want you to cross that line. It was like 6 o'clock in the morning. And I said, nobody challenged me. I got up out of my seat and I crossed that line. I said, I'm going to be a man of God. You know, and I had to study the scriptures. And in the middle of studying the scriptures, I started studying the book of Mark.
Again.
And I left that program after about 9 months, and I went to another program. And I had been sober. I stayed sober for a whole year. And I got an apartment. I found out that my friend Meshach Taylor was in Los Angeles, and I told him I was there. He says, Kenneth, you need to go to West Angeles Church of God in Christ. I went to West Angeles Church of God in Christ, went to Bible college, stayed in there. I told one of the deans of the school I had this idea to do a play, the Book of Mark. And one day on chapel day, at the end of the semester, I said I'd like to do an excerpt of the Book of Mark for the students. He says, come on chapel day. And I did it, and the students, they just stood up out of their chairs because I was reciting the Book of Mark, like I used to do to Sherry. I did the first 15 minutes, and they were astonished. And I said, I'm going to do this. And so from there, I got into another Bible college and got ordained. I'm now Minister Kenneth Foster.
Now, Minister Kenneth Foster, what a wonderful story. We're very proud of you. So you've been clean and sober for 15 years. Praise God, and made your way back to Houston.
Yes, yes. Bishop Blake, the pastor of West Angeles, now presiding bishop of Church of God in Christ worldwide, he was the man I admired most in the whole world. And one day he gave a sermon and said, if you have a vision, if God has given you something to do, you need to return to the place you got the vision, the dream. And I said, I got my dream at home. And so 2 years ago, I came home. And I've been doing the Book of Mark here in Houston, and God has allowed me to travel to do it. And I've gotten so much support from my family and friends, and I do the whole thing as a play. And it's become my dream and my life, and I'm happier now than I've ever been in my whole life.
Well, we are being told we need to wrap this up. Kenneth Foster, you have blessed us with such a beautiful story. Congratulations for 15 years of being clean and sober. What a wonderful ride, right. Don't you think, Danny?
I love it.
And this year you turn 60, and you'll have 16 years of sobriety. And I can't wait to see your play. Next time it's showing in Houston, please tell me. I will announce it on the show. We'll put it on Facebook, and we will support you and your journey for the rest of your life.
Wow.
So thank you so much for sharing your story. I hope Kenneth has enlightened someone tonight with the journey, the lengthy journey, learning something about the truth, because you have to really get off drugs before you can tell the truth about where you were and how low you went. Hopefully there's some justice in it, and you've learned something tonight. Thank you for watching Truth and Justice with Vivian King. Talk to you next week. Thank you for tuning in again. Tonight we have something really good, a hot topic in the news this week. He's been charged with crime. This is a show where I try to educate.